Hello, I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer with RealTime Fantasy Sports, and welcome to the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. It is time for This Week in the TFC. I'm going to be joined by my son, Henry Paur. He is going to help me break down the draft from July 5th. It was a Friday night at 8 p.m., so it was a day after the 4th of July, Henry. That was our big draft this week. Henry, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Henry, this TFC drafts are always so much fun to take a look at. There's all sorts of stuff that happens in them every week, and we really enjoy breaking them down on here. If you want to get in a TFC draft, just go to rtsports.com, click on that Money League link at the top of the page, and you can sign up. A chance to win $500,000. So that's what the TFC prize is. It's just an awesome contest, Henry. If you were to get in it, you can't because you're relative of somebody, but what kind of strategy would you might do for a TFC? You're going to try to take more chances? What are you going to do?
I think you got to take more chances in this. You got to be risky. You got to hope that you find some studs later in those late rounds, and I think you got to go with the guys that you think and your personal beliefs are going to be great this year.
I agree. You can't just go by that ADP and take the people right off the list there. You got to go with the guys you think are going to win. I think a lot of times it's one in the middle rounds. You got to find those guys like Raheem Mostert last year. So be interesting to see if anybody found that Raheem Mostert this year. I know you and I have some guys that we kind of like in that category for this year. So let's bring up this draft. Again, it took place July 5th, Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Actually, it was 9 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. our time. That's where we're in the central time zone here. So you can see the rundown here. Overdogs, Ribeye, Dan Reeves, Suncoast, Step Up, Flowers, TFC, RZA, Champ, SHCH, Freedom Rings, and KMG8. That's the draft order. Christian McCaffrey went first overall. Then you had CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Bijan, Breece Hall, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Saquon, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jonathan Taylor. Henry, that first round, pretty chalk. There wasn't really anything out of the ordinary there at all. I mean, you can't really argue with too many of those picks, can you?
Yeah, no, this seems like a very kind of basic first round. How you would expect the 12-team first round to go, really.
Exactly. There was 6 running backs picked, which is near. I mean, sometimes it's 4, so maybe the running backs got picked a little more in this draft, in this format. But again, like you said, can't really argue with this format here. But I like to look at the team builds. So we kind of talked about this before we came on. So there's actually 2 teams, Henry. Suncoast, Step Up, and then Champ. They took 1 running back in the first 6 rounds, and the rest of their picks were receivers and QB. So interesting strategy. Suncoast, he went Bijan, then Olave, Michael Pittman, Amari Cooper, Hurts, and then Keenan Allen. Step Up, he had Breece Hall in the first round, then Drake London, Nico Collins, Malik Neighbors, T. Higgins, CJ Stroud, and then Champ went Brown, Adams, Kupp, Moore, Jackson, and Brooks. So he was actually the reverse of the other 2. He took a running back last. So if you're looking at those 3 teams and those builds, which one do you like the most, Henry?
Looking at it, I really like this Suncoast team because I feel like the running backs that he got later are good value picks to go with Bijan here. You get David Montgomery, who's going to be that 1A, 1B with Gibbs, most likely. Again, get the goal line touches. And Raheem Mostert, who did just have that unbelievable year. We don't know how much A-Chain's going to bite into his workload this year, but he still could be a solid 2 probably. And you already have that paired with Bijan. Then you have Olave, Pittman, Cooper, Keenan Allen, who are 4 very solid wide receivers. And you got one of the elite quarterbacks in Jalen Hurts. I think it's a great build there.
I agree with you. I think Suncoast, if I had to pick out of the 3, he'll be happy to hear that. He's one of our favorites here at RealTime Fantasy Sports, top player. But yeah, for sure, I think I like that team the most. I'm big on Pittman this year. I think he's a little undervalued. I think he's going to get 100-plus catches again. I don't understand why the return of Anthony Richardson has somehow hurt his value. I don't quite get that. I think that's a positive over Gardner Minshew. So I like that build a lot, but definitely interesting way to do it. All 3 of those teams, they went more of the safe route. They got their number 1 running back, but then they really loaded up on receiver. They didn't want to take any chances with that running back spot because it creates a little more uncertainty. Then you had the flip side of things, Henry. Not a lot of teams went running back heavy early, which is a little surprising. Only, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 4 teams had 2 running backs after the first 3 rounds. So normally for me, I might go more that route, but of those teams, you had Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, Josh Jacobs, Rashad White, Alvin Kamara, Devin Achane, James Cook. Those are the 4 teams with 2 running backs after 3 rounds. Which pairing of running backs do you like the most out of that?
Ooh, I feel like the most balanced one will be the A-Chain Cook. I think that's the most balanced. Most balanced probably McCaffrey Henry, just because of how stable McCaffrey is. But I feel like the most high upside one is the A-Chain Cook duo. Those two could both have big blow up games in this year's league.
I kind of agree with you there, Henry. I think Henry's going to be steady. I think I'm a little lower than him on most. I just worry about his durability and age and Lamar Jackson getting some of that goal line work. But I still think he'll be really steady. You pair him with McCaffrey, that's pretty steady pairing there. I like a Chain and Cook pick as well. I think some people are scared of Cook a little bit, but I still think I'm really high on him. I know Allen will steal some of those touchdowns, but still, I don't like his competition for carries at all. So I think Cook could have a big season. And Chain still, he was phenomenal last year, even with Mostert around. And if he gets a few more touches, his ceiling is huge. So let's look at this tight end spot now, Henry. A lot of teams, they kind of went early on tight end, but there was one team that stood out to me. The first pick in the draft was Overdogs. He actually went McBride, Kincaid, back-to-back tight ends in 4 and 5. So he was picking on the turn there, but he definitely went tight end with both those picks. What do you think about that strategy?
But it's a little different, especially when he's in a need of a wide receiver 2 net situation. You could have gone McBride, and then looking at he could have gotten someone like Christian Kirk, Higgins, or Terry McLaurin as his 2 then. Instead of back-to-back on the tight ends there. I get that some people are very high on Kincaid this year because he may work as maybe the most valuable option for what's his name, Josh Allen this year. So he could be basically a wide receiver and play sort of a slot role like people thought he played last year. But I still don't know if he could do that in that situation.
Yeah, it's a different pick, but I can see what the owner's thinking here because if you think Kincaid's going to get 90 catches, that's going to be similar to what Higgins, McLaurin, and Kirk could possibly get. So if you think he's similar, you're going to play him at the flex spot. I think it's a safe pick. I'm okay with it. I can kind of see it. And you're also playing a little defense there, so you're taking away one of the top options at tight end, maybe a top-heavy position a little bit after those first 5 or 6 guys. So I can kind of see the thinking. I don't think I can do it personally, but it'll be interesting to see how that team shakes out after the season's over with. See if that strategy pays off for him. Mm-hmm. All right, Henry, let's look at QB now. I always like to look at that position. So a lot of teams, kind of waited on that position a little bit, and some other teams went early. I mean, that's the way it happens a lot in this draft, but I mean, Allen in round 4, and then Mahomes in 5, and Jackson in 6, and Burrow in they were in 5, Mahomes and Jackson, and Burrow in 6, and Stroud in 6. I kind of like the value of those elite guys at that point of the draft. That's not too early. You feel comfortable taking them there?
Yeah, I 100% do in these situations. I feel like they fell a lot than what they usually do. I think Allen in the 4th round is tremendous value for his rushing upside. Same with Hurts and Jackson. I mean, they're going to run the ball a lot, and you're going to get them in the 4th and 5th round after you acquired already good receiver and running back and tight end talent. I mean, I think it's a great value picks there with all of them.
I agree. I think they're all really good values, and with the way a lot of their roster builds turned out, I think the guys that went QB early ended up with maybe a little better teams in some of these situations. So I think it paid off for them. Like you said, a little surprising some of those guys fell farther than they did. I mean, those elite guys in round 5, there was 3 of them went there. Hurts, Mahomes, and Jackson all in round 5. I mean, you still have a good running back and a couple good receivers, most likely at that point of the draft. So I think it's pretty good value there. Mm-hmm. So on the flip side, so there was one owner that really waited on the QB position. That was the last one, KMG 8. He went with Tua in round 11. He went all receiver and running back before that. And then he took Tua, Kirk Cousins, and Aaron Rodgers. What do you think about that move?
I mean, I feel like those are all quarterbacks that they're not going to have your really rushing upside, but they could put up some big passing numbers on week to week. He could play them all based on matchups, most likely. Rodgers, Tua, and Cousins are all going to be in probably some decently pass-heavy offenses. Maybe not as much at Lamb because how much they're both running. Same with Rodgers, I guess. But Tua's air raid, he finished with big numbers last year in some weeks. And I mean, he could be great value there. I mean, I don't think it's a terrible strategy. He loaded up on running backs, it looks like, and has 3 very solid wide receivers. I think he's a decent team build.
Yeah, I agree. It was an interesting team build, but normally I would never take 3 QBs in a draft, but with the way he built his team, I think it kind of makes sense. And you got 3 guys that you can platoon on matchups on a weekly basis. It may be, tough to do, split your hairs out a little bit, trying to figure out which one to play each week, because one of the guys on your bench is going to go off over the starter. So that could be a little frustrating, but overall, I think it could work for him. So I don't think it's a terrible strategy by any means. All right, Henry, let's look at the late end of the back end of the draft here. Any picks you like here later in the draft? Any of these owners took in the late rounds, like 16, 17, 18? Anybody stand out to you? Anything you're surprised by, or any picks you like? You got anybody that fits that category?
I have 2. One's in round 14, if you're fine with that. But after the news came out today that Brandon Ayuk's requesting a trade, I think the Ricky Pearsall pick might be a great selection here. By who's picking in the 5th slot here? Step up. Could be a good selection there with them maybe trading away Brandon Ayuk before the season starts. They drafted him in the 1st round. I'm assuming they're going to use him a good amount, so that could be a good pick. My other one's also by him in round 16, Adonai Mitchell. I mean, he was a steal in the draft. People said that a lot. I mean, he could be a great weapon, that big, deep threat for Anthony Richardson. I think he could be a great fit in that offense. I think it would be a great value pick.
I agree. I like both those selections. That's a good call there. I mean, nothing really stands out of the ordinary too much, but a couple guys I'm kind of intrigued by. Mike Gesicki is one of them. I know Cincinnati hasn't historically used a tight end, but they kind of have an opening there at that number 3 receiver spot. So I think Gesicki could end up taking that role possibly. And I kind of like what SHCH4 did there. He went 3 tight ends really late, so he's going to kind of do the same strategy that KMG 8 team is doing with his QB. So I kind of like the Gesicki pick there. I think that was intriguing. Also, I guess the Will Shipley pick 2 in round 16. That's another guy I think could be moving up draft boards. I don't think Gainwell is going to be the number 2 in Philadelphia. I just don't know if he fits the mold very well there for that team. And I think Shipley could end up emerging being the number 2 back in a really good offense. So I think Shipley's a good late round dart throw. Okay, Henry, let's give our pick for favorite team out of this group, these great drafters from July 5th, the TFC draft. Who's your favorite team out of this group before we move on to other things TFC?
I'm going with the guy I mentioned, his running back duo earlier, TFC 6. I love his receiver build, St. Brown, Smith, Rice, 3 very solid guys. Amon-Ra Smith, they're going to be a great 1-2 punch. They have A-Chain, Cook, and Stevenson at running back. Those are 3 very solid options. Ingram and Ferguson at the tight end, 2 great options at tight end. And then you have Dak and Lawrence, who are going to be 2 very solid QBs. Dak had a decent amount of blow-up games last year that were great. And Lawrence, I think, he could have a decent year in this offense. I think they're going to have a bounce-back season, Jacksonville, and I think this is probably my favorite team build here. You also got Xavier Leggetti later in the draft. It's also a great pick, I think, for receiver depth, and Wan'Dale Robinson.
That's a good call, Henry. That was the team that was actually standing out to me, so you kind of stole my thunder there. There's some other options. I actually think the last team, KMG 8, although it was an unusual build, I like that team a lot. But I think I'm going to go with RZA. I just kind of like the balance of that team picked right after that TFC 6 team. So he had that 9th pick? Yeah, 9th pick. Yes. So I'll go with RZA. He took Jefferson, Etienne, Debo, Kenneth Walker, Mahomes, Godwin, Hopkins, Spears, Ford, Miller, Justin Herbert, Dalton Schultz, I like as a good low-end number 1 tight end. Then he has Chigakonkwo. It's another one of my targets late. So I just think the balance of this team is really good. Not really many holes. I like both their running backs, like both the receivers a lot. I know some people are scared of Jefferson, but still, it's Justin Jefferson. He's going to produce. The guy's a stud. I think he's going to have another huge year. So I think the balance of that RZA team is really good. Going to make a run at the league title here, Henry. So before we move on to the next round of business, Henry, let's tell everybody. I'm going to tell everybody when our next TFC draft is going to be taking place that we're going to watch and we're going to report on next week on this show. And it's going to be the 8:30, actually 6:30 draft. Let's pull it up here. There's a draft Friday night, this Friday at 6:30 Central Time. So actually, it's 7:30 Central Time. I apologize. There's one team in it already. So it's the Friday night, July 19th, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. So this is the entire week of drafts here at the TFC. We have some going off tonight, 7:30 Central Time, one tonight, another one. I think that says 8 o'clock. I can't read very well. It's too small for me, Henry, but we have some drafts there tonight, Tuesday, Wednesday as well. We have some slow drafts you can sign up for also. You can see there you have a 4-hour, 2-hour, and 8-hour one. And then there's some drafts on Thursday, Friday, and then the weekend also. We have drafts around the clock for the TFC. So, Henry, that's the week ahead. Again, the one we're going to review is the Friday, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. That is the draft we are going to review for next week. So if you want to get in that, see your team broken down by us here at RealTime Fantasy Sports, sign up for that one today. Just go to rtsports.com, click on that Money League link, and you can do that. Before we get out of here, Henry, I'd like to look at the ADPs from this past week. So let's take a look at that real quick. I'll just pull that up for everybody to see. So this is the ADPs. You can get this in our draft guide. It's freedraftguide.com. You can sort by contest. So this is actually the TFC from the last week. And I like to sort by trend. So these are the guys moving up and down the most. The number one mover is actually Jalen Polk from the New England Patriots, the receiver, and then J.J. McCarthy as well. A little surprising to me, Henry, J.J. McCarthy, because it kind of feels like Sam Darnold emerging as the guy who's going to start. But McCarthy's gone up 9 spots. It's kind of strange, don't you think?
I don't know if I guess it is pretty strange, but I mean, you also have to factor in if he does start, they have so many weapons in that offense. It's hard not to succeed. I think people are thinking about that, may take him as a backup or third string in some leagues. I mean, he's a chance you might be willing to take.
Exactly. The Jalen Polk one makes sense to me, though, because someone has to step up and catch passes in New England. He's getting some buzz with his work in minicamp, and so he's moved up a lot, 11 spots. So that's a big mover. Guys moving down, Malachi Corley, Tyler Boyd as well. The Corley one, I think, is kind of makes sense a little bit because the Jets are hyping up Tyler Conklin a little bit. So Corley could be moving from the waist, falling down by the wayside a little bit. So he's falling down a little. But again, these are guys, they're drafted outside the 200 range. So not a big surprise with either of those guys. Some other guys moving up, another New England receiver, Demario Douglas, and Troy Franklin with Denver. So Troy Franklin's another guy, young receiver, could get some chances in that Broncos offense. I guess he could be worth taking a chance on.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I mean, he's playing with his quarterback he played with in college. That should help, I think. But mixing them back on the same team could be they already had the chemistry. I mean, could be a nice duo there.
And then a couple bigger names on the list. Aaron Rodgers. So he's fallen 6 spots in the last week. Not sure what that's about. I guess people are just kind of scared of the situation in New York, thinking maybe he's getting older. Who knows what he has left in the tank. So I guess that's a tad surprising, but 6 spots isn't a whole lot at this point. All right, let's look at a couple other names, maybe anybody else that stands out on the list. I guess the biggest player is Jackson Smith-Njigba. He has an ADP of 97.94. He's gone up 4 spots, so he's moving up a little bit. He's a pretty big name player, so if you want to get him, he's moving up draft boards a little bit. I think his stock is going up. They've kind of mentioned they want to involve him more in the offense. Tyler Lockett's getting older as well. What do you think about Smith-Njigba, Henry?
Yeah, I like him a lot. I mean, like you just said, Tyler Lockett's getting older. This guy, they drafted him, I think, 21st overall now 2 years ago, last draft up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's going to get work at some point. He showed some great flashes last year. I mean, I saw some pictures yesterday of them working out together, Gino and Njigba. I think he could be a great late-round pick here.
For sure. And TJ Hawkinson, another guy I want to mention that's on this list. So he's gone down 4 spots. I think the news of his injury where he's really not in great shape still, and he could end up missing a lot of time. I wonder if he's going to keep falling as we get closer to the season.
Yeah, I think as we get more news on what that knee injury still is, that ACL is like, we'll get more of like if he's going to move down or up or what's going on.
Exactly. And so training camps are opening up this week in a lot of places, Henry. So it'll be interesting
Yeah.
to see the movers and shakers here in the coming weeks, because you're going to get all sorts of reports, guys, playing different positions or playing in starter roles. So this list should continue to be moving a lot here in the upcoming weeks. Again, if you want to see it, go to freedraftguide.com, click on that ADP link there at the top of the page, and you can sort by TFC to see the TFC ADP. All right, Henry, that's this week's edition of This Week in the TFC. I appreciate you coming on and breaking down these drafts with me and talking TFC. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
And as always, I appreciate everybody for watching. And again, if you want to get in that TFC draft this week, we are doing the one Friday at 7:30 Central Time. That's the one we're going to break down here on the show. You can get in any of them, but if you want to get broken down on this show, you want to get in that one this coming Friday. Again, go to rtsports.com and click on that Money League link to sign up. This has been Jeff Paur with RealTime Fantasy Sports. Thanks a lot for watching, and have a great day.